What's going on, everyone? This is Vince with VShred.com, and in today's video, I'm going to be showing you the 3 worst mistakes that I see made when it comes to doing bent over rows.
I'ma keep on going up till the lights go down.
All right, like I said, in today's video, we are going to be talking about the bent over row exercise, and I'm going to be talking about the 3 biggest mistakes that I see made when people are doing bent over rows. Obviously, bent over row, one of the best exercises for building your back, looks just like this. It's great for building strength. It's great for targeting your back, your biceps, strengthening your core as well. Good for building back thickness, and we've done tons of exercise or tons of videos here on the channel where we talk about bent over rows or include them in workouts and different variations. And this is just the barbell variation. This is obviously the dumbbell variation, the cable variation, and every single tip or every single mistake that we're going to cover in today's video is related to not only barbell but also dumbbell and cable. So if you do dumbbell rows, if you do cable rows, you got to make sure that you're not doing any of these mistakes. Now, before I get into the mistakes, I will say, just like there are mistakes when it comes to form with your exercises, there's also mistakes that you're probably making when it comes just to your plan of attack when it comes to like your total training plan, also with your dieting, your macros. You have to make sure that what you're doing is accurate and right for what your goals are. The biggest mistake that you can make when it comes to getting in shape is following the plan that your friend followed because it worked for them and just blindly going with it. What you need to do is make sure that you are creating a plan of attack from where your body is at right now based on what your body type is and where you want to go. If you're not creating a specific plan of attack, you're not going to get the results that you're after. And if you want help with creating that specific plan of attack, we have a free body type quiz that helps you identify what your body type is and the 3 most important things that you should do, training and diet related, and then also cardio related. Make sure that you're not spending an hour a day doing cardio. But if you want help with getting in shape, I'll throw a link down in the description below to our free body type quiz. Take it, highly recommend it. But getting into today's video, like I said, 3 biggest mistakes when it comes to bent over rows. The first one, and this is probably the biggest mistake that I see made not only with bent over rows, but just with, really any exercise, is ego lifting. You want to make sure that you are not going too heavy to the point where now you have to use momentum to get the weight up. So the number 1 mistake is using momentum to get the weight up. So what this means is usually people are going to throw on, let's say, 225 onto the bar. They got 2 plates on each side, and they're getting under this. They're like, all right, I'm going to get a set of 10 or 12 right here. And so what they do is they pick this weight up, and this is what you see. You see them going right here. You see it all the time. You might even see it from like one of your favorite IG fitness people, basically just getting on the weight. And it can be with, like I said, barbell, it can be with dumbbell, it can be with cable, or it can just be with like something like a landmine. I think that's probably one of the biggest ones. You see people getting on it like, and they're like, because they got it from point A to point B, back to point A, they're like, that's a rep. And because they got 10, 12 reps, they think that that's a quality set. When in reality, you have to make sure that your form is strict. Yes, going heavy sometimes and cheating some of the reps works in its own way and has its own benefits, but a majority of the time you have to make sure that your form is clean, especially if you're trying to like bulk and get bigger. Usually when I'm in a bulk, I'm going 1 heavy week followed by 2 light weeks. That way I can focus on strength and I can also focus on building noticeable muscle. So when it comes to bent over rows, get rid of that momentum. You're not trying to create any momentum unless you're like really trying to go heavy and you're going for like 4 or 5 reps and like that 5th rep you have to cheat it a little bit, fine. But for the most part, especially if you're going higher rep, focus on time under tension. And what that means is instead of going like this, you want to focus on getting into a nice strong position, rowing this weight up, squeezing, and returning it back down. Rowing this weight up, squeezing, and returning it back down. If you do this right here 12 times, I guarantee you get a better pump, you get better lat activation, and you end up getting more sore than if you load up twice as much weight and you throw this weight up and down. You're not going to feel very much of a pump there. You're not going to feel very much of a squeeze. And you're not gonna get results and you're gonna wonder why. Well, it's because you're lifting with your ego. So stop creating momentum with bent over rows. And again, goes the same with dumbbell. Don't be throwing that weight back. Same thing with cable. Don't be throwing your back back. Make sure that it's controlled form. And I know those are weird movements, but that's mistake number one. Now, mistake number two comes down to understanding that every single rep has 3 contractions. You have your concentric contraction, which is pulling the weight up. You have your isometric contraction, which is basically just squeezing at the top. And then you have your eccentric contraction, which is lowering this weight back down. And one thing that's important to understand, everybody has usually a better concentric contraction than an eccentric contraction, meaning they put a lot of focus in rowing the weight, but then when it comes to the eccentric, they just drop the weight back down. And you see it done all the time, usually because people are going too heavy, but also because some people just don't know. Fact is, your muscles are stronger in the eccentric contraction than they are in the concentric contraction, which makes sense because you can handle a lot more weight and just slowly let it lower back down rather than actually row the weight up. You could, if someone was hanging onto your hands, it'd be a lot harder to row them up than it would be to start right here and just lower them down. So your muscles are stronger there. So you have to make sure that you're giving that contraction enough emphasis with every single rep so that you can really maximize the amount of tension on the muscle. So what this means is instead of getting under this bar, rowing it up with good form, and then dropping it back down, this right here is what you see all the time. What I want you to do is try to focus on your eccentric contraction, lowering the weight, lengthening the muscle to be twice as long as the concentric contraction. So if you row this weight up and you go, let's do let's do Mississippi's. So if you go 1 Mississippi, I want you to go 2 Mississippi on the way down. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. 1 Mississippi, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. 1 Mississippi, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. If you do that with every single rep and you're going 1 on the way up, 2 on the way down, every single rep is 3 total Mississippi, the amount of time under tension that you're gonna get per set is going to be so much higher than if you were just to drop this weight back down. And really with every single set, we're trying to aim for like, especially if we're going for hypertrophy, going for higher rep, I mean, we're aiming for a minimum of like 30, 40 seconds per set. And so it sounds like it's not that much, but in reality, you gotta break it down by rep. If each rep takes 3 seconds, you have to do a minimum of 10 reps with that perfect form to reach 30 seconds. And so making sure that you're keeping track of how long each rep takes and getting that time under tension, gonna make a huge difference. So that's mistake number 2. Stop just dropping the weight back down. And then the third mistake, and this is the most common mistake that I think I see made when it comes to building your lats and doing bent over rows is, and usually this comes down to people just not knowing any better, they end up rowing the weight way too high. And so what I mean by that is you have to understand like how your lats work, and how your lats work, or how you work your lats is by bringing your elbow down and back. Yes, you can work your lats by going like that, but you're also gonna be getting a lot of shoulder activation, a lot more shoulder activation when I do that rather than that. Right here is where I'm gonna be working that big meaty part of my lat. And so if that's what you're trying to do, which is usually the emphasis of something like a bent over row or a bent over dumbbell row or a close grip cable row, if you're trying to build that big meaty part of your lats, you have to make sure that your form is correct. And what that means is not bringing this weight up into your chest, because another thing that happens when you bring the weight up into your chest is you do get a lot more bicep activation because there's a lot more elbow flexion. And so when you're bringing it up here, yes, you're gonna hit your back, but you're gonna hit a lot of biceps and you're just not gonna hit your lat as much. And so instead of doing that, what I want you to do is really focus on driving this weight almost backwards and then just pulling through your elbow. So you're not really focusing on bending your elbow, you're focusing on pulling it through it. And so what this means is instead of going up like this, which is what you see done a lot, people pulling up into their chest area, I want you to focus on leaning back a little bit. And then first, before you start pulling up, I want you to drive your elbows back. okay? So drive your elbows back and then bring it up into your belly button. This right here is much better form than this. And I'm sweating now. But when you get into, so like, it may look like the range of motion is longer when you're bringing it up into your chest, but in reality, you're not going to be activating your lats as much. And so while it may feel a little awkward in the beginning to drive your elbows back, and same thing when it comes to dumbbells. When you have dumbbells and you're getting on a bench, you don't bring this elbow, you don't bring it up into your chest. You bring it back and then pull through your elbow, getting a nice squeeze on your lat, and then return it back down. Do the same thing again. Return it back down, same thing again. So probably the biggest mistake that I see when it comes to bent over rows, and again, this relates to not only barbell, but dumbbell, cable, anything. So make sure that you're not doing these the next time you go to the gym for back day and you're doing bent over rows. Obviously, bent over rows are one of the most important exercises for building your back. Just make sure that you're doing it right. Because if you do it right, you're gonna get results. If you do it wrong, you're not gonna get as good of results and you're gonna wonder why. This is why. So fix that. Let me know what you thought about these exercise mistakes. And if you want me to make a video about any other exercise mistakes, whatever your favorite exercise is, comment it down below and maybe I'll make a video about that. Also, if you like this video, if you like these mistake type videos, make sure that you are smashing that thumbs up button below and subscribing to the channel here on YouTube. Make sure you're part of the VShred fam. But that's all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this helps, and I'll see you in the next one.